Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I'm here today to speak about the very first lunar eclipse taking place on the 26th of May. So basically, we are entering the eclipse seasons. We are going to be having four this year. And, eclipses are on full moons and new moons on steroids. So they definitely need a special attention. I hope you really like the background picture because I chose that on purpose. This full moon or eclipse is called as the flower full moon. So, and I felt like this picture is really something which is just describing the qualities of this full moon. Now, I would like to basically this full moon, I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently than I usually do. Today, I'm not going to be focusing on the house positions for you, but I am going to be focusing on planetary activations in your chart just to try to make it as personal as possible. So basically, as I said, this eclipse will be happening in the sign of Sagittarius on 5 degrees. So if you have got any planet around 5 degrees of the mutable signs, which means that Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo, especially, then you are very influenced by this lunar eclipse. And this is going to be bringing a tremendous amount of change in the next 6 to 18 months. So I would like you to listen to the first part of the video, which is going to be actually talking about what a lunar eclipse is, what it triggers within us, a little bit of a general description of what the energy itself talk about. Then in the second part of the video, I'm going to be breaking it down of the planetary activations, which might be very personal. Meaning that, let's suppose, in my case, for instance, this lunar eclipse is going to be triggering my moon because my moon is on 4 degrees of Sagittarius. And I would say that up till about a good 8 degrees from that 5 degrees of Sagittarius, you are very much influenced, especially if you've got planets in the sign of Sagittarius or in the sign of Gemini. But at the same time, if this lunar eclipse is falling on one of the angles of your chart, you are definitely having a very busy year. So, but without any further ado, let's get started. So, as I said, it's going to be happening on the 26th of May in the sign of Sagittarius on 5 degrees. And I would like to dive into what actually a lunar eclipse means. So, firstly, an eclipse occurs when three celestial bodies are in the same direction, and one of them obstructs the reciprocal visibility of the other two. So, in astrology, we only tend to be looking at the lunar eclipses, but actually there are different types of eclipses. Also, for some reason, we don't necessarily speak about them as much. Now, what is eclipse? So when we look at the Greek meaning, then it means abandonment. When we look at how the Chinese say, it means that it's being eaten away. The Spanish says it distincts, and the Russian says it blacks out. So an eclipse occurs when the sun, the moon, and the earth are on the same plane. So we've got two types of eclipses. One is the solar eclipse and the other one is the lunar eclipse. So the lunar eclipse is when the earth stands between the moon and the sun, basically cutting off the light of the sun from the moon, meaning that the moon kind of disappears. Now this lunar eclipse is always a full moon, and it indicates endings and kind of a culmination of something. But it becomes very special because it's like a full moon being on steroids, and it usually talks about some break in the pattern. Eclipses always arrive in pairs, coinciding with the new moon and the full moon, and they always appear in a family of signs. So usually we've got 4 of them a year, but sometimes, like last year, we had 6 of them. So an eclipse occurs when the sun is within 18 degrees of one of the nodes. Now, some people say that the lunar eclipse lasts about 6 weeks. I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with that, because there is something called lunar gestation cycle. And every 18 months, we are going to be having either a full moon or a new moon on the very exact position where the lunar eclipse happened. So in my opinion, it has got minimum of 9 month kind of effect on our life. And lunar eclipses does bring in a little bit of a dramatic flair, dramatic tools to draw our attention to certain area of our life. So from a modern perspective, a solar eclipse lasts up till about 6 months. In my opinion, it's more than 1.5 years. And from a modern perspective, lunar eclipse lasts for about 6 weeks. The lunar eclipse is a little bit more internal and it really stirs some of the emotions up. Now, the most important eclipses are when your eclipse is conjuncting or opposing your sun, ascendant, or midheaven, even your IC or descendant as well. Or it's in conjunction or opposition to one of the ruler of the angles. And that's what basically we call it as a zero latitude. But let's not be that technical. Now, those, for instance, who were born on an eclipse, usually their life feels beyond their control. And those people are somehow part of the collective energy. Even if you were not born during an eclipse season, but in your solar return chart, you're going to be having an eclipse, meaning that you were born somewhere between 22nd to the 30th of May, then this lunar eclipse definitely will impact you the most. One of the reasons why, because the universe is really trying or it's intending to move forward. And the eclipses kind of mark a major turning point in our life. So something ends and something new starts. There is an element of a death and rebirth involved here. Now, the lunar eclipse is more of an emotional time and usually brings endings. The solar eclipse is more about new beginnings and new opportunities. So, usually eclipses speed things up. You might have been expecting an event happening for months or years, or at least in the last 18 months, and nothing really happened. And these eclipses are really speeding things up. I would say that during eclipse seasons, we always need to watch out for our health, especially if the eclipse happens within 5 days of your birthday or opposite your birthday. Same with the ascendant or planets in the first house, because it could be pointing out some underlying conditions or weaknesses. Basically, during eclipse seasons, the Asian people tend to not doing anything, sorry, because they believe that this is more of a time for spiritual cleansing. So, but, you know, does the eclipse bring the messages on the very same day? Usually, a message brought to you by an eclipse is usually delivered on the very same day or within a week of the actual day or date of the eclipse, but not always. So if nothing really happens, then think back what was going on exactly a month before, because you might be receiving those messages a month before or a month later, sometimes I would say plus minus 5 days. And if neither period delivers any news, then watch out for the days when Mars or Saturn move over the precise degree of your eclipse. It can be even opposing it or squaring it, because eclipse must bring you something. And the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because I've seen posts on Facebook, oh, there was an eclipse, nothing happened, and so forth. And usually people say that, oh, it's going to be happening in 6 months' time. not necessarily true. It might be happening when Saturn and Mars are going through that exact point of your eclipse degree, which is this time around the 5 degree of Sagittarius. And it might be up till, as I said, the following 18 months. Now, I'm not going to go into the technical details of why Saturn and Mars, just go with it and then have a look at when does the Saturn-Mars trigger that point, usually by squares, oppositions, or conjunctions. Now, this eclipse actually has got quite a nice feeling to it, to be frank. There is just a little bit of a tension involved here because this eclipse, one of the ruler of the eclipse is going to be Mercury, which is a few days later going to go retrograde, happening on the 29th of May. But I will be making a different video about that because this video would be extremely long, so I don't want to be tired. Now, as I mentioned, this eclipse is very much about, you know, it can make us a little bit less vital. We want to definitely pay attention not to overburden our body. This is more about taking extra care of the body, resting a little bit. It is quite advisable to even do some spiritual practices. That's exactly what the Asian people used to do. So what they did was they went out there, they went to do some, you know, kind of like a retreat or spirit work, a little bit of a shadow work. These are very, very potent, basically, with this eclipse. But because it's happening in the sign of Sagittarius, and we know that Sagittarius is very futuristic, very much about the visionary goals or visionary things. So you might be required to let go of some of your old visions. Maybe some of your ideas, what you had, is kind of outgrown, and you're gonna have to find new kind of motivations in life. It might be in the relationship department, it might be on a personal level, it might be working with some of the emotional burdens and blockages, or it might be work or task related. But this eclipse, which definitely talks about letting go of things, because, you know, eclipses or even the full moon overall is spotlighting some area of your life. So you might want to be having a look at what house it is happening, and those are going to be the area of life you need to let go of, or something is outgrown there. But so something, because, you know, this lunar eclipse is very much connected to the South Node. And the South Node talks about emptying things out. So it's like having a bin which needs to be emptied and then put into the garbage. So that's exactly how you want to be looking at this. And you want to be looking at where the Sagittarius cusp is in your chart. So for instance, this lunar eclipse is taking place in my 10th house. So there are bits and bobs which I need to empty in regards to my career, the way how I am seen, and so forth. So letting go is one of the keys. Because it happens in the sign of Sagittarius, it is very much about the meaning to life. So you might be required to discover different types of meaning to your life. It might be talking about the fact that you need to be shifting your ambitions. South Node usually very much about contributing to the society. So with that South Node energy, how can you contribute to the collective and to the meaning to your life as well? You know, Sagittarius very much talks about right and wrongs because it's the sign of opinions. So do I have got the right mindset? Do I have got the wrong mindset? And that needs to be somehow examined. You might actually meet some teacher or gurus or some new ideology, for instance, or you just take a new meaning to life as well. Maybe some of you on a physical level, you've planned some of your travels or holidays, and then you're going to have to let go of those. And you are required to find new ways of adventures, for instance. So this eclipse actually happens in the first decan of Sagittarius, which is a very pure Sagittarian segment of the sign. So, by the way, this eclipse is going to be visible in Australia, parts of the Western US, Western South America, and also the Southeast Asia department, parts of the world. It will be very active, meaning that those countries will feel the effect of this eclipse way more than other areas of the world. So unfortunately, because the sun and the moon are always in tension, it could bring in some type of tension between even these countries, or something which is going to be about travel restrictions, something to do with COVID passport, for instance. Maybe some of you want to really relocate to a foreign country, or you want to be involved in travels. You might want to just broaden your perspective. You might want to go back to studies. So definitely there is an element of, how's it called? Like the education department in the world might be getting triggered. And remember that I was speaking about, sorry, I'm getting blocked here for some reason. I was referring to, the lunar eclipse as being a spotlight in certain area of life, but Mercury is going retrograde, and Mercury is the planet of news. So there is going to be some news around traveling, adventure, export, import, something even around legislations and law and shipping also could be something which might be coming up here. I would also, you definitely be long distance travel, especially when it comes to air travel, shipping, sea traffic, foreign imports and exports, foreign lands, even some of the weather conditions around the coasts. Or I feel like there is going to be some legislation, rules, and restriction, which is getting spotlighted in one way or another when it comes to travels. But it really talks about maybe a new immigration law. But also these Sagittarius does talk about the long distance communication as well. So it might be talking about some of the social media channels, which we might see some significant changes around. Also, there could be some changes around the legal professions, or somehow we are having a lot more emphasis on the religious affairs, so such as like the churches, lawyers, justice, the law courts. Maybe the universities are going to be changing somehow profiles, some of the academic type of things, higher education, writing, publishing, all these type of fields are very, very much affected by this lunar eclipse. Of course, looking at the current trends of, the current trends of the world, of course, it's going to be somehow around the education and legislation and probably the immigration, which is going to get affected the most. So this lunar eclipse is very much talking about, how do we feel about where our expansions lies? What is our personal truth, and how can this truth be be communicated as well? So, Gemini and Sagittarius axis very much talks about the moral dilemmas and concerns. And with that, Mercury is definitely about some type of revision and rethinking for issues which is relating to our professional aspirations and our family life as well, to a certain extent. Now, in order for us to understand the lunar eclipses a little bit more, it's also pivotal to look at when we had the last one. Now, we had one last year in June 5th, but before then, we had one in 2020. So 2002, sorry. So this lunar eclipse is very much triggering 2 years for us, and we can see some repetition there. So the 2020 June period, and also we had one in 2002, which happened around, the 26th of May, actually. So looking at what was going on in 2002 to start with, I don't want to talk about 2020 because we do know what happened, right? But in 2002, actually, one of the things which was going on is that the Open Skies Mutual Surveillance Treaty, which, by the way, was signed initially in 1992, officially entered into force. So we might be seeing some type of changes around that. And also the euro was officially introduced in the Eurozone countries. So it kind of gained a legal tender. And it happened actually around February 2002. So I'm expecting either with the euro to have some type of trouble, actually, or some type of restrictions around the department. And also we had a massive Mount eruption as well in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which actually had about 400,000 injured people. So that's also very possible that it might be happening, something like that. Also, the NASA started to map the surface of Mars using its thermal emissions imaging system. So we might be seeing some of the results of that in the next 9 to 18 months. Also, there was the Envisat environmental satellite, which got launched, and its purpose was to record information of environmental changes. We might be seeing some innovation or technical advancement around that also. We had a Palestine suicide bomb attack, which actually killed 30 people and injured 140. Israel was quite a hot topic around that time. We also had the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, which took place in Westminster Abbey. We know that unfortunately the Queen has lost her husband recently as well. But what I found the most interesting is that in 2002, we had a very severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is called as SARS. It's kind of an epidemic which actually began in China. And it is something which is caused by a coronavirus, and it was recorded in 2002 as well, in the first quarter of the year. So definitely, somehow this topic is going to be, emphasized for us, really. So, but what we see about this lunar eclipse this time around, it looks a lot more positive, and I'm going to tell you why. Because firstly, definitely with that Mercury retrograde, something hidden will be revealed. Of course, the lunar eclipse is somewhere where the moon is not visible. So some of the secrets are going to come to light, and it will be impacting the world. But at the same time, Sun is trining Saturn, the moon is having a great aspect to Saturn as well. Mars is actually trining Neptune, Pluto actually sextiles Neptune. So this lunar eclipse, in my opinion, is really highlighting some positive energies. I can imagine that some of the underdeveloped countries will get help from others, and maybe they are going to be receiving the vaccine as well. Obviously, Neptune is very much represented by represents the virus, the pandemics. So, and it's because it's receiving some positive aspects, hopefully it is highlighting some positive event around travel, export, import, foreign matters, and so forth, but probably with some type of regulation. On a personal level, it is definitely talking about revising your plans and expectations. And with that Mercury retrograde, it might be bringing some type of delays as well. But you might want a change in your cultural orientation, or you might want to relocate to a foreign country, or being involved with travels, or you just want to be broadening your perspectives or studying. All these type of energies are getting very much triggered. Now, this would be just a general overlook of what to expect from this lunar eclipse. So maybe let's just have a look at what happens when each of these planets are getting activated in your chart. The reason why I kind of wanted to do this for you was just to make it more personalized and make sure if you enjoy this video, then press like and share it with others as well. It might be actually helping them to figure out what this lunar eclipse is very much talking about. So when you have got the eclipse triggering your sun, usually it brings the greatest changes in your life. So the sun is the masculine nature of our identity, and it helps kind of to radiate our personality. The vitality is kind of a little bit of an ego type of things, but there is also an element of depression involved with that. Remember that the lunar eclipse very much affects your physical well-being. It might be indicating some type of changes in your appearance, but sun as the vocational call, it might have got a very strong influence on your career direction. So for instance, if you are self-employed, sun can be representing your business, and your business is getting highlighted in one way or another. Or if you have got a career and you've got a boss, actually the sun can represent your boss as well. So your boss might be going through some type of changes, which is actually affecting your life also. If it happens on your moon, which is my case actually, then it might be talking about that the home and the family structure is somehow going to get affected in your life. The moon represents how you feel and what you need to feel better, or what's the key to your own happiness. And you might get a little bit of a clarity over that, or you're going to have to examine those things for yourself. Moon can also be an indicator of important women in your life, such as your mom or wife or even sister, but even it could be your grandmother as well. So they are very much affecting somehow your life. Of course, it really depends on the house position of your chart. So the more, if it happens in angular houses, you're definitely going to be feeling this more than, for instance, in Caden houses. However, with Caden houses, let's just be careful a little bit, because those are the 6, 8, 12, plus the third house. Now, 3 of those houses are called dark houses, which means that it can even take us to a darker level. It could talk about changes in our residence, accommodation, or some type of domestic preferences we need to attend. Or maybe there is going to be some type of changes in your safety, security. This moon can also bring fluctuations in your financials for the better or worse also. You know, in charts, as I said, it could really represent your marriage partner as well, especially your wife or the wife's mother also. So there might be something around that which you need to be attending. Generally speaking, with the moon, relationships can become an issue. Now, when you have got Mercury getting activated, again, this is actually very much about a major relocation. Typically, it talks about we leaving our home for the very first time. So maybe moving across the country or to a completely new territory. With Mercury, unfortunately, it could talk about a loss of a family member as well. But it could indicate that we are going to get to know an important person in our life. Mercury rules over information and any sort of communication. So it could indicate a new beginning and endings around that topic as well. You might just need to make a very important decision this year around Mercury and topics. So you might want to be looking at what does the Mercury rule in your chart, or where Mercury is placed at in your birth chart. When you've got Venus getting activated, then it doesn't necessarily indicate that it's going to be stimulating your love life. It might be just talking about your closest personal relationships, but your value system can go undergo a significant transformation, or you might be developing some type of cravings and sensitiveness as well, or the way you connect with others. Again, with Venus, you can change your appearance, you can change your style altogether, because you have got a strong urge for harmony, beauty, and happiness. With Venus lunar eclipse, it could even indicate an end of a relationship also. But if Venus is somehow tied to your 2nd, 5th, 8th, or 11th house, it could also talk about financial changes in your life. Again, for the better or worse, it really depends on the aspects of your natal Venus. So good aspects from the benefics, or hard aspects from the malefics. Also, this lunar eclipse is definitely going to be affecting you the most if it's on your profected lord. Okay, so let's see what happens when it triggers your Mars. So there might be a kind of a bigger urge to initiate success. With that Mars, we can easily start a new job, or we can become more competitive and courageous. We can actually we can have a more increased sexual life as well. And we can experience plenty of drama as well in those houses, whatever Mars rules. Also, you might have got way too much energy going on this year, so you do need to pay attention to injuries also. Injuries, accidents, Mars can also represent that. You might have to undergo an operation, for instance, some of you for beauty reasons, some of you for medical reasons. But I feel like with Mars, typically it's going to be talking about wanting to advance in your career and maybe creating some type of new jobs as well. Unfortunately, with Mars, we can even attract more violence into our life as well. Mars, I've just done a webinar on mental health, but Mars, in my opinion, rules over depression. So this lunar eclipse can also signify that for you. When we've got Jupiter getting activated in our chart, well, that does talk about some type of expansion in your social environment. So you might be having an urge to kind of gain your personal freedom back. Definitely, if Jupiter is getting activated in your chart, you pretty much affected. Why is that? Because Jupiter is actually ruling this time around this lunar eclipse. So you will be feeling this the most probably. Probably some people might be feeling trapped in one way or another in their certain relationships, and they might be receiving the freedom, or they might be receiving some choices they can make to gain their freedom back. You might be actually traveling a lot more, or it's a brilliant time to start advertising your business or do something about your talent as well. You can even have some changes in your religion, or you can get closer to some type of divine power, practicing more spirituality. With Jupiter, it's also very possible that you're going to start learning a new language, or even just meeting foreigners, or somehow connecting with foreign cultures more. When it comes to having Saturn getting activated by an eclipse in your chart, well, I would like to mention that contrary to the popular belief, we tend to be seeing a lot more positive things with Saturn than in any other aspect. The reason being is because Saturn, we are talking about a 19-year cycle. So I said that the lunar eclipses, solar eclipses are like a retrograde period in a sense because they run in families. So the very last one was in 2002, and we had a little bit of a glimpse in 2020 as well in June. So with that Saturn, we can actually experience a reward for our hard work. We can have some, we can be acknowledged for our hard work in one way or another. So it could bring some promotions or pay rise as well. Or maybe it's about you being able to manage your financials a lot better as well. Or you might be just managing your time a lot better, and you're gonna be a lot more organized. It does give you a reminder that there is a need to look after your elderlies as well, especially parental and grandparent figures. It might be about having a lot more responsibility in your working field. And at the beginning, it can be a burden. So you can get easily tired, or even you might want to try to get out of responsibility because you might feel frustration to answer higher powerful authority figures. But overall, hard work can really pay off with Saturn. I would say that with Saturn, you definitely need to be paying attention to the spine and the bone structure of the body. When you've got Uranus getting activated in your chart, again, it might be an indication of changes in appearances. So, for instance, because I want to be losing my large weight, for instance, not only Moon, but Uranus is getting activated by this lunar eclipse for me. And I started going to the gym last week. So I've been 4 times already. I lost a kilo, which I'm very happy about. And I'm very much planning to change my appearance, not just by weight, but the way I dress. Trying to go to shave as well because I have been extremely busy recently. But with Uranus, again, the freedom is getting very powerful here. So similarly to Jupiter, your relationship can be very much affected. And also maybe you need to let go of some of your friends as well. Maybe with the Uranus, the downside of it is that we might not be able to focus as much, and it's harder to find ourselves to deliver any type of commitment. Because there is an element of urge to be free. And we tend to be a little bit more scattered with that Uranian energy. But we can have genius ideas. So in that sense, Uranus rules something over startup companies. So you might want to actually think about what other business ventures can you pursue. With Neptune, in many cases, actually, there is a sudden marriage happening. Don't forget that Neptune is the cosmic womb. So we came from somewhere. And with the Neptunian energies, we kind of unite with a soulmate. So very possible to meet someone significant in our life, similarly to Venus as well, to be honest. But remember, this is a lunar eclipse. Something needs to be closed and something new is ahead of us. But this Neptune can bring plenty of confusion or a lot more of a spiritual awareness. We might be greatly inspired. So there is a creative growth in art, music fields. But this could indicate chronic illnesses as well. Unfortunately, we do need to mention that. So this might be the time when actually you are required to change your lifestyle. You might actually get misdiagnosed by a doctor, and you're gonna have to go and get checked by someone else as well, getting a second opinion. Or even if you are coming out of something, this could talk about a prolonged recovery also. With Neptune, which rules the pandemics, it's something to be also mindful about. Even it can indicate that we're gonna get a little bit scattered and we can have temporary memory loss. So we don't really remember things, what is happening around us, because somehow with Neptune, we are trying to find a sweet spot in our lives. There is an element of escapism going on. Watch out for your sleeping patterns because they can be up and down. You can have very vivid dreams also, or you might just want to be sleeping a lot more. So that's the escapism tendency of Neptune. Of course, we do need to mention that Neptune rules over obsession. So we might want to be escaping through drugs and alcohols. So if that's the case, this lunar eclipse is highlighting that because it's something we need to let go of. When you have got Pluto getting activated by this lunar eclipse, well, this is more like the younger generation, of course. Then this might be, or this is the time to let go and expose any matters that have been deeply hidden with yourself. So it's very much about coming out of your closet, basically. You might be focusing way too much on power struggles, or you might be pushed to kind of face your inner demons. But of course, these monsters under your bed, it brings fears as well, and you might be becoming a little bit more reluctant to release those. If Pluto is getting triggered in your chart, it's definitely something which is very powerful because Pluto recently went retrograde as well. So it's definitely about letting go of some of our fears, insecurities, and bringing them out of the closet. Some type of emotional trauma might get exposed here. Another topics might Pluto bring for you is around sexuality and even inheritance as well. Somehow other people's money might be a heightened topic for you in the next 18 months. But with usually with Pluto, some type of crisis situation needs to be resolved, which eventually leads to a change. So there is a possibility for you to completely rebirth, and in 18 months' time, people are not going to be recognizing you. When you have got the North Node getting activated, it really acts like a little bit of an ascendant or midheaven point. So I would say that with the North Node, the first and the 10th house kind of topics are going to be coming into the picture. So something, a complete and utter change in your environment and in the way, in your path. So you can expect plenty of changes around your appearance, around your career goals, or how you want to be seen by others. I've experienced with North Node, marriages and divorce can both happen. Somehow the relationship topic also comes into the picture. First house is the relationship axis, and the 10th house, we do need to get that activated in a marriage because your social status is changing. When you have got a South Node getting activated by this eclipse, then it really represents a significant other or kind of a total stranger in your life. So we can bump into a new person, or we might be having some type of challenges to resolve around a significant other in our life. It does talk about some type of repeated patterns in your life, which needs to be re-examined. So it might be something which started in 2020 and there is repetitions around that, or in even 2002. So this South Node can bring even legal matters or competitors in your life, but even some type of major health changes also. So you might want to be paying attention to that. No matter whether it's North Node or the South Node, this lunar eclipse can feel very, very fated in a sense. And with the South Node, which is a very Saturnian energy, sometimes it just makes us a little bit more depressed. When we've got the ascendant or its ruler getting activated, With this, the focal point is your appearance, your physical body, and your close personal relationships. Also, how I look at the world. So the way of kind of thinking is kind of changing, and the whole persona might emerge in different ways. It's like a cosmetic makeover, basically. So for me, this lunar eclipse is triggering my moon, Jupiter, and Uranus, because those are conjuncting very tightly in my chart. And Jupiter is the ruler of my first house and my 10th house. And of course, this lunar eclipse is also ruled by Jupiter. So, and I'm changing some, I'm making some changes in my body, surely. It's like a cosmetic makeover. But also, it could talk about just a lifestyle change or changes in your physical status or attitude overall. And you might become more aware of some of your identity. When you have got the midheaven getting activated in your chart, it kind of shows how other people see you, as well as the easiest way to become successful. And you might get a glimpse on that. It might be letting go of some of the old projects and jobs you have been doing, and it might ask you to start a new career. It could bring weddings and divorces, or you might become actually more public, or you have to let go of a public project and start a new project. But somehow you are exposed to issues and matters in your life. Definitely, it could bring some type of changes in your career. So these are the most important points in the chart. I know you guys are going to have questions. What if it's vertex and so forth? Yeah, maybe with vertex, I would say that when you have got an eclipse happening on your vertex, it very, very much talks about a possible fated relationship. So a vertex is something which is somewhere between your seven. I mean, usually it's around the 7th house, but basically it can be really anywhere. So with that vertex, it's talking about some type of encounters with others. It's kind of a type of descendant. It is also called as a fated point in your chart, something which you have not really much control over. So this is kind of the point which attracts others to feeling the mystic part of the self. So it could really talk about that you meet someone significant or you let go of someone significant in your life. Remember, these energies can go two ways. Now, talking about the vertex, the opposite side of the vertex is called anti-vertex, which is kind of like an electric ascendant. It doesn't really show choices. It's more about involuntary actions. So it could really talk about maybe you giving way too much control to a partner or to others in general, and that's what you get reminded of. Or somehow the destiny involves another person for whom you may be doing a service, or you might be required to somehow promote some type of teamwork. So either in personal relationships or just in general, a member of a larger team. Maybe you might feel a strong need to somehow follow your parental footsteps. And maybe you realize that your success is very tied to somehow others, and you might want to let go of that. And likely you can get married with this too as well. Anti-vertex is very much connected to victims and working on behalf of victims as well. So there is an element of, there is an element of a helping side to this also. So this was our forecast on the lunar eclipse, and we're going to have a solar eclipse coming up for us as well. The solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse kind of work in a very similar way. Just one is more internal, which is the lunar eclipse, and the solar eclipse is more kind of like fated, and it tends to be bringing us more external events in our life. So definitely watch out for the upcoming video about the solar eclipse as well, because I will be making one. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and a little bit of an announcement. For some reason, Pluto was the most viewed of all video of mine so far, the retrograde motion of it. So I've decided to make a video what happens with Pluto entering Aquarius, which is going to be in 2 years' time, 2023 March. But I feel like it's never early enough to get prepared for such a huge change, because Pluto has been in the sign of Aquarius since 2008. So it's definitely something significant. So I'm making a free webinar on that. On the 15th of May, it will be live on YouTube. So sign up for that, it's free of charge. And beginning of June, I will be making a video on Pluto return in America. This is something people really ask about a lot from me. So I wanted to shed some light on that as well. It's also going to be live and free of charge. So I'm hoping to see you very shortly with my next video, and have a blessed week, everyone. Bye-bye.